I work the front desk at a boutique hotel in Amsterdam. Last month, an American guest approached me at 11 p.m., visibly stressed. She asked if our hotel had quiet hours she needed to follow. I told her most guests sleep after 11, so softer voices help. She pulled out a notebook, an actual spiral notebook, and asked me to specify the exact decibel level permitted after certain times. I stared at her. She was serious. She wanted me to give her a numerical sound limit so she wouldn't offend the European cultural standards. I told her just don't blast music or yell. She wrote that down, word for word, then asked if light conversation qualified as yelling. I said no. She asked, what about enthusiastic conversation? I told her to just use common sense. She looked panicked, like I'd given her an impossible riddle. She spent 15 minutes clarifying whether laughing counted as noise violation. It didn't, but she made a chart anyway. A cafe worker in Paris told me an American asked for a written guide on proper French cafe etiquette before ordering coffee. She wanted to know the culturally appropriate amount of time to spend per beverage. He told her there's no time limit. She didn't believe him. Another American in Barcelona asked a waiter if making eye contact while ordering was too aggressive for Spanish culture. The waiter said it was normal. The guy avoided eye contact the entire meal just to be safe. Turns out, Americans think Europe runs on secret etiquette codes only locals know. Let me share what we actually deal with. I'm a receptionist at a law firm in Munich. An American consultant arrived for a meeting and froze in our lobby. His German colleague extended a hand for a standard handshake. The American stared at it like it was a test. Then he asked, "Is this a business handshake or a friendly handshake?" My coworker blinked. The American continued, "Because in international business seminars, they taught us Germans have different handshake firmness depending on context." He wasn't joking. He pulled out his phone and showed us an article titled, "Decoding European Handshake Pressure." The article ranked handshake firmness by country on a scale of 1 to 10. Germany was listed as 8, firm but not aggressive. The American asked if he should calibrate to an 8 or if that was outdated information. My coworker just shook his hand normally. The American spent the next 5 minutes analyzing whether he'd matched the firmness correctly. During the actual meeting, he apologized twice for his handshake execution. Nobody else had even thought about it. After the meeting, he asked if a goodbye handshake required different pressure than a hello handshake. We told him it didn't. He looked unconvinced. He left still Googling German handshake follow-up etiquette. I work at a university in Copenhagen. An American exchange student asked me how to greet Danish professors without being culturally offensive. I told her just say hello. She said she'd read that Danes value equality, so using titles might seem hierarchical and rude. But she'd also read that not using titles seemed disrespectful in academic settings. She had created a spreadsheet. Column 1, professor names. Column 2, their age. Column 3, their field of study. Column 4, formality likelihood score she'd calculated herself. She asked if she should say Professor Jensen, or just Jensen, or Mr. Jensen, or skip titles entirely and use first names. I told her professors introduce themselves however they prefer. She asked what if they don't specify. I said then ask them. She wrote that down like it was revolutionary advice. Then she asked if asking them was itself rude because it implied she didn't already know Danish academic customs. I told her it's fine to ask. She looked relieved but then asked if there was a proper way to ask. I told her any polite phrasing works. She pulled out her phone and started drafting sample scripts for different scenarios. She'd labeled them Scenario A, Formal Professor, Scenario B, Casual Professor, Scenario C, Ambiguous Signals. She asked me to review them. They were all fine. She asked which one was most culturally aligned. I told her they were identical. She disagreed and explained the micro differences in tone she'd engineered into each. I told her to just say hi and use whatever name they give. She thanked me but kept the spreadsheet just in case. I'm a bartender in Stockholm. An American sat down and immediately said, I know Swedes don't like small talk, so I won't do that. Then he just stared at me in silence. I asked what he wanted to drink. He ordered a beer and whispered, I'm respecting the cultural boundary. I had no idea what he meant. He explained he'd researched Swedish social norms and found that Swedes find American-style chit-chat annoying. So he was practicing Swedish silence. I told him I'm fine with conversation. He looked skeptical. He said his guidebook explicitly stated Swedes prefer minimal verbal interaction with strangers. I told him that's not a strict rule. He asked if I was just being polite to make him comfortable. I wasn't. He didn't believe me. For the next hour, he sat in self-imposed silence, occasionally glancing at me like he was waiting for permission to speak. Another customer started chatting with him about football. The American looked distressed. After the conversation ended, he apologized to me for violating Swedish social boundaries. I told him it's fine to talk. He said, but the guidebook. I told him guidebooks generalize. He asked if I could recommend a more accurate guidebook. I suggested he just interact normally. He thanked me but looked doubtful. He left a note with his tip, sorry if I overtalked. I'm a waiter in Rome. An American couple sat down and stared at the bread basket like it was a trap. After 5 minutes, the husband flagged me down. He asked if the bread was complimentary or if they'd be charged. I told him it's included. He asked if that meant they were expected to eat it or if leaving it untouched was rude. I said it's optional. He asked if taking bread implied they were ordering appetizers, or if they could take bread and skip appetizers without offending the kitchen. I told him the bread has no connection to appetizer orders. His wife asked if there was a maximum amount of bread they could take before it seemed excessive. I told them eat however much they want. She asked if Italians judged tourists who took too much bread. I said no. The husband asked if they should wait for their food to arrive before eating bread or if eating it immediately was acceptable. I told him there's no rule. He asked what most Italians do. I said it varies. He asked me what I personally would do. I told him I'd just eat the bread. He asked if that was my genuine answer or if I was simplifying for tourists. It was genuine. His wife asked if using butter on the bread was culturally inappropriate since Italians use olive oil. I told her butter is fine. She asked if requesting butter was rude. I said no. They spent 10 more minutes debating bread strategy. Finally, they took one piece each and ate it in synchronized bites like they'd rehearsed. They left the rest untouched. When I cleared the table, the husband asked if leaving bread behind implied the bread was bad. I told him it didn't. He looked relieved but uncertain. I work at a cafe in Prague. An American asked me if tipping was customary in Czech Republic. I told him it's appreciated but not required. He asked what percentage was culturally appropriate. I said 10% is generous. He pulled out a calculator. He asked if 10% was calculated on the pre-tax or post-tax total. I told him it doesn't matter. He said it matters for cultural accuracy. He asked if rounding up was acceptable or if exact percentages were expected. I told him anything is fine. He asked if tipping in coins was offensive or if it had to be paper bills. I said coins are fine. He asked if there was a minimum denomination that avoided insult. I told him any amount is appreciated. He asked how locals signal tipping so it doesn't seem like they forgot change. I said just leave it on the table. He asked if verbal acknowledgement was required when leaving a tip. I said no. He asked if making eye contact while leaving the tip changed its meaning. It didn't. He asked if tipping more than 10% seemed like showing off. I told him nobody thinks that. He calculated exactly 10% to the crown, then recalculated to confirm. He left the tip in the exact center of the table, equidistant from all edges. Then he asked if the positioning of the money conveyed anything. It didn't. He adjusted it anyway. He asked if he should say anything when he left. I told him no. He said, "Thank you" 4 times while walking out, just to cover all possible etiquette bases. I manage a cafe in Vienna. An American stood at the entrance for 10 minutes, looking distressed. I asked if he needed help. He asked where he was allowed to sit. I told him anywhere that's open. He said he'd read that European cafes have unspoken seating hierarchies. He asked if window seats were reserved for regulars. I said no. He asked if sitting alone at a 4-person table was rude. I told him it's fine if we're not busy. He asked how to determine if we were busy. I said look around. He did, then asked if moderately full counted as busy. I told him just sit anywhere. He asked if there were tables tourists should avoid. There weren't. He asked if older locals had priority seating. They didn't. He asked if he needed to ask permission before sitting. He didn't. I told him to just pick a table. He asked if picking a table near the bathroom was disrespectful to the establishment. It wasn't. He sat at the table closest to the door, explaining it was the least intrusive option. Then he asked if sitting near the door implied he was planning a quick exit, which might insult the quality of our coffee. I told him it didn't imply anything. He moved to a middle table. Then he asked if middle tables were for large group. I said no. He stayed there but looked uncomfortable the entire time. When he left, he apologized for any seating confusion. I'm a tour guide in Edinburgh. Last summer, an American joined my walking tour and raised his hand before I'd even started. He asked if there were rules about when he was allowed to ask questions. I told him any time is fine. He asked if interrupting my explanations was rude or if waiting until the end was expected. I said either works. He asked if other tourists would judge him for asking too many questions. I told him nobody cares. He asked how many questions qualified as too many. I said there's no limit. He asked if there was an unspoken European norm about optimal question frequency. There wasn't. He asked if his American accent made his questions seem more intrusive. It didn't. He asked if he should raise his hand or just speak up. I told him either is fine. He raised his hand for every single question for the next 2 hours. Even when nobody else was talking. Even when I called on him directly, he kept his hand up while answering. At the end of the tour, he asked if he'd followed proper tour etiquette. I said yes. He asked if I was just being nice. I wasn't. He asked if there was a feedback form where he could check if his behavior was culturally appropriate. There wasn't. He thanked me 17 times. I counted. Then he asked if thanking too much was an American stereotype he should avoid. I told him it's fine. He thanked me again, then caught himself and looked embarrassed. Here's the truth. Europeans don't have secret etiquette codes. We just do things and expect others to do the same. If you're polite and use common sense, you're fine. Americans create problems by assuming everything is a test. It's not. Just exist normally. That's the whole secret. More stories coming soon about Americans who turned simple European customs into full research projects. Because apparently, saying hello requires a manual now.